So let's talk about now disparities. Perinatal depression and just having perinatal a health condition will impact to a certain extent everyone. There is going to be more prevalence and more susceptibility for specific cultures and races. So it impacts about 20% of all birthing people, right? Like we mentioned earlier. Nonetheless, this prevalence will be higher amongst communities of color. BIPOC stands for Black, Indigenous People of Color. So even though it doesn't have the word L for Latinos, Latinx, that doesn't mean that all Latinos are also people of color, right? But we are minority still because we speak different, we have different traditions, and even within one country there are different traditions and languages and even foods, right, that are different. So I think it's also important for us to recognize what's in place and what's missing when we are protecting a family. Sometimes with the families that I have worked in the past, they tell me the difference of their first postpartum when they were still living back in their home country versus their second postpartum once they immigrated to the United States, and not having that support system, their tia, their grandmother, their mom, or a neighbor, family, or friends from church. It really makes a difference. Even just talking to a neighbor across the street from the balcony, like in certain countries, that, it's something that they miss and that they long for to have, just to have a connection and for them not to feel very lonely. So what are some facts? Okay, so it's important for us to keep in mind that for Black and Indigenous birthing people, it's 4 times more likely for them to die during birth through a health complication. Between 15 to 50% of the birthing people will experience perinatal depression and may go unidentified. Okay, so that's still pretty high numbers. It's also important to bring into consideration the fathers and the partners of the other parent or the spouse, because they will also experience paternal depression. Okay, they also have hormones, they also have susceptibilities, they also have a history of anxiety or depression, perhaps, and their own traumas possibly, right, with their own families. So they can also be impacted during the postpartum period. Okay. Also, the rates of perinatal depression will be twice higher with families with disabilities. And that's also an area where we need to keep expanding and having conversations, because not every doctor may know how to treat individuals with different disabilities or have the equipment to be able to treat them. Adoptive parents are also families who want to become parents, and they can also experience perinatal depressions and also other perinatal conditions, and queer families as well, LGBTQI plus families, because there's still gender dysphoria limitations, especially with everything that has been changing in the country. More hospitals or clinics are being closed, and many of them are not receiving the care that they were receiving at some point. And there's still a high risk of suicidality for them to commit suicide or die by suicide. This is a really awesome graphic that has more recent data and information, and it's still pretty sad that in the United States, even though we are a big nation, the rate of mortality, the mortality rate in the United States is still higher compared to other countries, such as even Portugal. It's one of the second. But Canada, the UK, Finland, as you can see, Australia, the maternal mortality is a lot lower, but it continues to be high. And as you can see in 2020, what happened in 2020? The pandemic, right? So that definitely made a big impact in many families. It has decreased, but it's still pretty high in the United States.